Hello, my name is Ólafur Hrafn Steinarsson, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Esports Coaching Academy. My journey in gaming started way back. I think I played my first video games around 4 or 5 years of age, but it wasn't until around 7 when I moved to Reykjavik from the Vestman Islands that I truly got into gaming, because I moved closer to my grandparents. My grandmother was basically the original gamer in the family. She would have the Nintendo Entertainment System and Super Mario, Dr. Mario, Duck Hunt, DuckTales. All of these games were the origin story of my gaming passion. Then a couple of years after that, my grandmother actually buys one of the first PC computers to come into the households in Iceland. And while everyone else were getting their PC computers for home office things, accounting and calculations, she bought her computer explicitly to game on. She would sit there with me and she would teach me these games and she would help me become better. So she was truly, my first gaming coach. And that's how I grew up learning video games. I've always approached gaming with a very performance-oriented mindset. When I was 7 years old, I would sit there with a little notepad, noting down the time it took me to finish Super Mario Bros. 3 or anything else. Then, as it happens, new hobbies arise. I went into a lot of sports. I was training football, basketball, handball, karate, all at the same time. But unfortunately, I ended up getting bullied in each one of those sports. And I didn't really feel very comfortable there in the long run. Around 11 years of age, I unfortunately lost my father in a tragic accident. When that happens, when you're 11, man, your world just collapses. And very quickly, I stopped doing all sports. That environment, that bullying, that negative atmosphere, I couldn't handle it. I was just a young kid going through grief. 3 or 4 months after he passes, I get my very own PC computer as a part of his inheritance. I had obviously been passionate about games for a long time, but this situation that I was going through in life, plus getting the PC computer, just took it to new heights. Unfortunately, that combined with stopping all sport activity didn't really sit well with my mom and my stepdad, until we finally sat down and had an honest conversation. And it wasn't until then that I shared with my parents that I was being bullied in those locations. And all of a sudden they realized that they'd been pushing me towards an environment that made me feel really bad, while consistently taking away the thing that was helping me cope and helping me feel better. And we finally took the stigma away from the computer. That was no longer the bad guy in the equation, and we just worked with it. And they started supporting my gaming endeavors, and we started collaborating on how I could remain healthy. I got back into sports. I found boxing that fit me really well, and my gaming didn't have to suffer for it because I wasn't constantly fighting this negative stigma at home. My experience there is my core motivator in making this happen, because if I look at Iceland today, if I were going through the same situation, I wouldn't have to go the path alone. I wouldn't have to spend all my hours in my room training alone and figuring out my own path. I could go to a local sports club and I could swap from the football department to the esports department. And I could enter a community of my peers, a community that is led by a coach that celebrates my passion, that celebrates me for being interested in the things that I'm interested in, and supports me in growing through that passion, and supports me in balancing that with other aspects of life, including being healthy and just setting my life up for success. So that is truly where the motivation behind the ECA and our mission to change the way kids interface with gaming comes from. It all starts with my grandmother. It's pretty crazy to think about.